Alright guys, I'm getting ready to drive 3 hours south. I'm going a little bit past Huntsville, Alabama to take a look at a Chevy Top Kick. What's interesting about this one is that it's powered by the 454, the 7.4 liter Vortec big block, which a lot of you probably hate because you think the big trucks have to be diesels, but there's a few reasons for that and I'll explain those to you a little bit later. The issue with this truck is that it's not currently running. So I've got my truck loaded up with tools and hopefully we can get that thing running, and then I'll come back tomorrow with the family. They'll give me a ride and then I can drive it back. That's the idea. Let's see if it works out. They told me that all it needs is a fuel pump, but in the pictures it looks like they had just recently replaced the fuel pump because there's a new fuel pump box in the cab with the old fuel pump in it. So let's see. All right, I made it in one piece. I got my get up on so I can get this thing going. Let me show you what it's looking like. So I've got my portable charger plugged in here. Let me show you inside. I have an old fuel sending unit. It's definitely super rusty. There's no pump on the end, which is strange. And then we've got, ooh, what's this? This is probably a fuel pump. Oh, here's labeled as, oh, there's another fuel pump. Let's see. Oh yeah, this looks like a new one. It's got the sock and everything, but let's see, some electrical tape. Ugh, gooey electrical tape. All right, who knows what's going on. Basically, I tested with my little multimeter here to make sure we're getting power. I was getting 6 volts out of this line, not 12 like I would expecting. Also, I took a look inside the fuel tank. I can't really show you with the GoPro just because it's hard to see in there, but it's looking pretty rusty and the fuel level looks super low. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pull off this fuel pump and sending unit here, and then I'll hot wire it to the battery just to make sure everything seems to be whirring. And if it seems like it's whirring and I'm getting what seems like pressure out of it, then I'll go to the fuel store, get some fuel, fill this up, see if we can get it pumping, and then we'll try starting it up while bypassing it. If that works, then we'll unhook the bypass, see if we get to fire. If it doesn't, then we'll figure out where the electrical issue is. So first things first, let me get this removed. All right, I've tested all the electrical components. The motor here has a decent amount of resistance. It's right at 100 ohms, which seems good. Everything seems fine except for this right here. This is a grounding strap from here to here. So we're not getting a ground to one of these pins, which obviously seems important. So I'm gonna repair that ground strap and then we'll see if we can get some pressure out of it. All right, change of plans. The grounding line was too corroded, so what I did was I disconnected, I just cut right here the fuel sending unit signal wire, and that is now my ground. So I'm just gonna have to rewire it on the outside to see if it works, but at least that way we've got 2 clean wires. We just won't have a fuel sending unit until I get this fully repaired. So let's see if it works. All right, so this is what I had to do. I ended up tapping into power from an auxiliary fuse, and I did it after it was fused, so the fuse is still working, and then it runs to this switch that I've got right here, which then runs to the positive side of the fuel pump. Now I did fire it up just a second ago. It was doing okay. Let's see if it's still hanging in there. Listen to that 454. So oil pressure went right up. I did have a low coolant light. I went ahead and put a little bit of coolant in there. I'm not sure why it was low, but I'm working my way through this to kind of see what else is wrong with it. But it's running nice. Ooh, I didn't look at the exhaust yet. Well, it's a little smoky, but it's also very cold right now. So let's see, we'll get it up to operating temperature, check for leaks, and then I guess test drive. Let's see, gauges are still looking good. Good oil pressure. Alternator looks good. Very clean inside. Look at the seat. Either this thing's been replaced or, well, 122,000 miles. I guess this could be original. Just in really good shape. All right, let's keep looking. Well, fiddlesticks. We have a leak out of the parking brake actuator. So we have no way to drive it. So it's running, but not driving. So I added a little bit of fluid, and that is what is currently leaking out of there. Now the parking brake on this kind of strange how they do it. It's a drum that's attached to the back of the transmission, and I'll show that to you now. So there it is. So I have to unhook that to bypass that, and then we won't have any parking brake, which sucks because that's also parking on this. I don't believe there's a parking pawl in the back of the transmission to lock it in, and that's just because if you have this much weight on it, it can obviously break the transmission. So they want to have an actuator there to lock that tail shaft in place so that it doesn't damage a parking pawl. So let me just look up and see if I can bypass that and test it. Alright guys, I took it on a test drive. It did okay. The tires have been sitting for 7 months in one spot, so they seem to have that little bit of a flat spot, and it was a little wobble down the road. Transmission shifted smoothly-ish, at least for an Allison. To me, they always seem to shift very quickly from first to second, and then pretty firm from there on out. The engine seems a little bit underpowered. Not really sure why that is. I'm sure it could use a little bit of a tune-up. Hopefully there's nothing else there. Double-checked the temperature along the way. It got up to operating temperature. It held on just fine, so we're doing okay there. I couldn't find any leaks afterwards, so I've got a 3-hour drive back to Nashville. I'll talk it over with the wife and we'll decide if we want to pull the trigger on this. I'm thinking we probably will, but we'll find out. Guys, we are at the side of the road at just a regular old rest stop right on the border of Alabama. Check this out. The Saturn rocket just hanging out.
All right, guys.
Golly, look at that. All right, it's day 2 of the truck dilemma adventure. I brought my wife this time, and we are having a blast. We just went to Jack's, which we thought was Jack in the Box, and they told me they don't sell curly fries because they're not Jack in the Box. But now we're trying to get this truck ready. I've got a couple little butt connectors on there that are a little bit better for the fuel pump situation. I have some Alumaseal right here that I'm going to put into the radiator. That's going to seal up the tiny little leak that I've got on the water pump. And then I have a barb fitting, and I'm going to cut both of the lines that go in for the heater core because I've got a little bit of a leak. I noticed it mostly when I turned on the fan and it was at operating temperature. You could hear this fan was spattering some of the water that was in there, and then I saw some drippings coming out here, and then a little bit more out of, I don't know if you can see, but right in there it's the weep hole for the condenser, or evaporator rather, when the water drips out. But because the heater core is leaking, I was getting some fluid out of there as well. So once I get that bypassed, I'll double check all my fluids and we should be good to go. All right, it ended up taking 26.1 gallons. So if you add 5 to yesterday, that's 31 gallons of new fuel that we've got in here, which means we've got, what is that, 19 gallons of old fuel that we've got to burn. So hopefully that explains why it's got a little bit of a rich smell to it and a little bit of white smoke. Hopefully we won't have any issues now that we know we've got 50 gallons. At 4 miles to the gallon, we should be able to get at least 200 miles. That's assuming that it's running poor and empty, getting 4 miles to the gallon. So I'll probably stop it in around 50 to 75 miles and just see what we're averaging. Let's do it. Well, this truck isn't doing too bad. It's able to maintain speed okay. I don't know, there's not much else to say. It's still a little bit bouncy. I don't know if these tires need balancing or it's just because they're so heavy, but we're cruising at 45 miles an hour and it seems fine. Wish me luck, 150 miles to Nashville. Well guys, this is not Nashville. We made it like 4 miles and now we're on the side of the road. So let me show you what I think it is. It was running good. The transmission sounded like it didn't want to shift. I believe it is the parking brake for the, let me see if we get a little light on here. I think it's the parking brake. I had to disconnect it, as you see here, in order to make it work. And in disconnecting it, I think it's just putting some resistance on the pads, and I think as they're getting hot, they're wearing out or something. So that's what it smells like. It smells like some clutch material. So the wife has got the wheels chalked so I can monkey around with this a little bit. All right, guys, so I didn't film as much on the side of the road as I would have liked to, and that's because I had the wife and the kiddos stuck with me in the Prius, and we were fighting daylight. We really wanted to get back out there on the road. So I was going through all my diagnostics, and the second that we felt comfortable actually getting back on the road, we did. We just jumped right on there, and then I realized that I didn't film any of it. So while we were driving down the road, I had my phone set up for GPS, and so I hit record on that, and I'll show you that now. Guys, sorry about the vertical phone syndrome here. I am white knuckling this drive, and I don't want to grab the GoPro. We have 45 minutes left, so we're 2 hours and 15 minutes into this drive. I think I figured out what the problem was. As far as I can tell, the brakes were, I don't know if they were locked up or if they were binding up just a little bit. There was no issue with the parking brake. It spun freely. The muffler was 581 degrees, which seems really hot, but it seemed like it was flowing okay through there. So after 15 minutes or so, let me back up. So the reason I thought it was that parking brake was because when I was coming to a stop, it felt like a parking brake was on. You know, I could smell that material. What I think was happening was I think that because it's been sitting for so long, I think that the brakes were kind of bound up a little bit on the front, and I think I had a sticky caliper. So after a few minutes of monkeying around with it, testing the fuel pressure and seeing how it ran, it was running okay. So I hit the road, and here we are, white knuckling it through this drive. I've only had to hit the brakes twice in the last hour and a half. And, they were working okay, so we have about 6 miles to go, and we're gonna stop at a place that's about 45 minutes from home and you know, use the restrooms, fill up the fuel tank. We're gonna see what kind of mileage it gets. So what's your guess? My wife, I just asked her on the radio, she said 12 miles per gallon, which shows how little she knows about Chevy top kicks with gas engines. I told her 9, I'd be ecstatic. I said, I'm guessing somewhere between 4 and 6, which I suppose is 5. So 5 is my official guess. All right, we are at 26.57 gallons, 159 miles, 5.98. 6 miles per gallon. Not unexpected, but not great. I'm freezing. All right, I'm just double checking these fluids before I leave. Engine oil's looking fantastic. Transmission fluid great. Coolant awesome. Running out of synonyms. And over here, I wanted to show you something while I was checking the brake fluid. Got these little mud daubers right here. Those things have taken down more than one aircraft. They clog the pitot tubes on the front of the aircraft, which gives it its airspeed reading, and then it makes the instruments go haywire, and almost always pilot error. Next thing you know, a whole bunch of people are dead. But luckily, little mud daubers on top of the backside master cylinder will not cause catastrophic failure. All right, very, very cold. Get inside, all done. Let's get out of here. So I'm really wishing that I still had the heater core. I did think about, because I put that AlumaSeal in there to seal up that pinhole leak in the water pump, which I checked and it's sealed, by the way. I thought maybe it could seal the heater core, but when I turned on the fan, I could hear that splitter splatter I was telling you guys. So I think it was enough of a pinhole leak to where it wasn't a drip. I think it was pressure coming out of there. So I still feel comfortable that I don't have one. I just wish, I guess I'm not comfortable that I don't have one because I'm freezing right now. We're almost there, 45 minutes to home. Well, we made it. I was pretty nervous about the last 45 minutes of that trip, especially when we got into town and had stoplights, because I thought the brakes were going to bind up again, but it had no issues. It's been a few days, all the snow is melted. I've driven it around a few times, and it seems like the brake caliper issue was a one-off. Let me show you what I've got planned for it. You can see we've got it on wheel chocks right now, and that's because the parking brake is still inoperative. So I'm going to be fixing the parking brake setup. As far as the engine goes, it's going to get a complete tune-up. We're doing plugs, wires, belts, hoses, that kind of thing. I'm going to be doing a new water pump, of course, because we've got that leak, new heater core, all new hoses to and from the heater core, that kind of thing. The gas tank, I'm going to be doing a new everything inside. So the fuel pump, the sending unit, all the wiring, that's all going to be replaced. Because it is a little rusty inside, I'm going to remove it and then I'm going to completely reseal it, so we should be good to go. Once I do all that and I feel like it's mechanically sound, I'll take it around and do a nice little test drive on it. We'll test the mileage. Hopefully we can get up to 9 or 10 miles per gallon, which will indicate that it is running good. And then if that's the case, we're going to start loading up the inside with all of the shop equipment and all of the stuff in our house. Let me show you what it's looking like. So it's actually set up inside very similar to how the shipping container was, where I've got a nice little wooden structure on the top for all the little light stuff, and then I can put all my heavy equipment here, then all of our household stuff in the back. So what's the plan for this truck? The idea is get it all loaded up with all of my shop equipment and all of our household stuff. I'll drive it back to Phoenix, where I'll then keep it with some friends or family, and then I'm going to fly back here, where we're then going to take our truck and an RV and travel around the country until we find where we want to live. Once we find the right city, the right spot that fits us, we're then going to buy some land, and I'm going to build a house and a shop combo from scratch. So then I'll pick up this truck, bring it to our new property, where we'll then build the house shop combo, and then after that I'll take the box off and we'll turn this into a pizza truck, same as the last one. So if you stay following along, this truck will have quite the adventures. So that's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I did not. It was terrifying and miserable, quite frankly, but at least it's here and it's all in the past now, so we're good there. Next week will be episode 3 of the side bathroom. That's the bathroom that I'm building totally from scratch. It is so close to being done, so hopefully you guys will get to see that finish up next week. Take care.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.